Now let us talk about the diversity. Now we spoke about all the different types of microbes. Now did you notice the diversity? That is the variety of shapes and sizes in which they are available. So if you talk about bacteria or fungi or protozoa or algae, so all of them have got a variety of shapes. They can be spherical, they can be cylindrical, they can be round, they can be flat. So they can actually exist in a variety of shapes as well as sizes. All of them are very small, but even in that very small, so which organism is how many microns, so that also depends. So their size also comes in a huge variety. So if you talk about it, so the diversity is not only in terms of their shape and size, the diversity also exists in terms of their habitat. That is, in what type of location do we find the microorganisms. As we said, they can be found almost everywhere. You can find them in soil, you can find them in water, you can find them in air, you can also find them inside body of another organisms. So in this picture, what I am trying to show is, even inside the human intestine, you often see these microorganisms parting inside. So it's like they can exist in a variety of locations. So that means also the microbes are extremely diversified. That is, they have a huge variety of habitats where they can be found. They can also exist inside other plants, not only animals, but they also exist in plants. So now let us talk about the exception, that is the viruses. Because when we talk about microorganisms, we are basically talking about extremely small organisms, and the discussion would remain incomplete if we leave viruses. So let us talk about viruses and why are viruses an exception. So viruses are also microscopic, and that is why we are talking about them here. Otherwise, we would have not discussed viruses at all. However, they are not considered as microorganism. Why? Because microorganism refers to something which is microscopic, that is, which is extremely small. At the same time, that should be a living organism. But if you talk about the viruses, they do not behave like normal living organisms. So what are viruses? Do I mean to say that viruses are non-living things? They are like the chairs and tables around us? Not really again. Because had that been the case, in that case, doesn't matter, even if it is very small, why would I include it, or why would I even like to discuss it under the lesson, under the topic of microbes? Now there is a reason behind that. The contradiction with the viruses is that they do not behave like living organisms as long as they remain isolated. That is, as long as they are outside the host cell. Now, what is a host cell? Now, as I mentioned before also, that microbes can also exist inside body of other organisms. Now, the organism inside whose body the microbe stays, so that organism is called a host. So like it is something like, let us suppose if you are organizing a party on your birthday. So in that party, who is the host? You are the host and your friends are the guest, right? So that means all your guests are going to come to your place for the party. So in a very similar way, these viruses can exist inside the body of other organisms. So those organisms which welcome the viruses, they are the hosts. So these hosts can be any other organism. For example, the host can be a bacteria. So in that case, the virus can actually get inside the body of the bacteria. Now the contradiction is that these viruses behave like non-living when they are outside the host cell. So as long as it is not entering inside the host cell, as long as it is not entering inside the bacteria, it will behave like a non-living organism. In the sense, it does not eat, it does not sleep, it does not behave like plants, it does not behave like animals, it does not perform metabolic activities. So it doesn't show any sign of life as long as it is outside the host cell. But what happens as it enters the host cell? Now, as soon as the virus enters inside the host cell, it enters inside the bacteria, it starts to reproduce. So it reproduces only when it is inside the host cell. So as soon as it enters inside the host cell, it starts to multiply and to replicate. Now, non-living organisms will not replicate, right? Your chairs and your tables, they do not multiply overnight. So in a very similar way, had viruses been completely non-living, in that case, doesn't matter, even if they have entered inside the host cell, they shouldn't start multiplying. So because of this peculiar behavior, viruses are considered as non-living when they are outside the host cell, but as soon as they enter inside the host cell, they are considered as living. So because of this confusion, they are not considered as a part of microorganism, but at the same time, we discuss them as an exception under the microorganisms. And in this lesson, we will also talk about the various diseases or the various usefulness which we get out of the viruses. So now the question is, how do microbes play a role in our life? Because in this lesson, we are trying to understand the good and bad of microbes. That is, what good role do they play in our life and what bad role do they play in our life. So till now, we got to know what exactly are microbes. What are the examples of microbes? So we are clear with all that. So now we have to understand how it helps us and how it harms us. Now, all of us know that microbes are harmful to us. So that is something which is known to all of us. Whenever we think of a microbe, whenever the word bacteria or a virus comes to your mind, all you could think is maybe a viral flu or a bacterial infection. So we can only relate these organisms mostly to their bad effects. In fact, if I ask you that what are how these microbes are harmful to us, you can name plenty of diseases, and then you can see that these diseases are caused by the microbes. So we can think of n number of situations or n number of diseases which are caused by different microorganisms. But in this lesson, our focus is not only to talk about the harmful microorganisms, but also to talk about the friendly microorganisms, because there are quite a few microorganisms which also help us in a number of ways, but their help is not that popular amongst us. So we are first going to talk about the friendly microbes, and then we will take up the harmful microbes. So microbes cause a large number of diseases in animals and plants. This is something which is known to all of us. In fact, if you look at human beings, it often happens that we eat something outside and something like food poisoning happens, and then we might have stomachache, or we might have vomiting, or we might have loose motion, and all these happens because of the presence of some harmful microbes in the food item which we ate. So now the question is that whatever we thought that microbes are only meant to harm us, that is not true, because they help us as well. So a microbe can be our friend, it can also be our foe. So it can be a friend, it can be an enemy. So in this lesson, we will talk about both these aspects of microbes. So first, let us concentrate on the good things, and then we will talk about the bad. So first, we are going to discuss about the friendly microbes. So here we will see that how these microorganisms, bacteria, fungi, they help us in various ways. So here are our friendly microbes. So several microbes are also useful to human beings in many different ways. Now, for many, it might be surprising that, okay, till now we only knew about germs, that microorganisms are germs, but basically germs and microorganisms are not synonyms. So the word germ is basically used for those microbes which cause diseases. But there are good microbes as well, which instead of causing diseases, they help us in many different ways. So how do microbes help us? What are some of the ways in which they help us? So they help us in a lot of household products. So they actually help in the preparation of these products like curd, cake, bread. Now I am sure that we consume all these in our day-to-day life, and in their preparation, microbes play the most important role. They also help in a lot of industrial products, like products which are prepared on a commercial scale in the industries, like beverages, antibiotics. So antibiotics, they are a boon to us. Now see what a contradiction. Antibiotics are used to get rid of diseases, and the diseases are also caused by microorganisms. So on one hand, we have a group of harmful organisms which cause diseases. On the other hand, we have a group of helpful microorganisms which help in preparing antibiotics, and these antibiotics will cure the diseases. So that means they serve both the purpose. They also help in preparation of a lot of enzymes and acids, and these enzymes and acids are again very much helpful in sewage treatment. Sewage treatment is another important application. So right now you might not know what exactly is sewage treatment. So I'll just quickly tell you what it is. What is sewage? Sewage is the unwanted water which contains, which has a lot of pollutants, and which can cause air pollution and water pollution, and it comes out of your house every day. So this sewage, if you directly dispose them off into a river or a pond, what happens? The water in that river or pond gets completely polluted, and the water becomes unsuitable for drinking purpose. So what needs to be done is, this sewage should be properly treated because it is before it is disposed of to any other water body. So how do we treat a sewage? A sewage is treated, primary treatment, and then followed by secondary treatment, in which all the harmful substances which are present in sewage get converted into less harmful substances, and then they are disposed of to the water bodies. So in that case, the water bodies are not polluted to that extent. So this is basically sewage treatment. And in the process of converting more toxic substances into less toxic substances, microbes play a major role. Now, we are not going to discuss about sewage treatment in detail right now, but if you want to understand it for your understanding, you can refer the video lessons of class 12th biology or class 11th biology, where I have explained sewage treatment in detail. Biogas production. So biogas is another environment friendly gas or a fuel, and in the production of this type of fuel also microorganisms play a major role. Control of pests and diseases, like the pests and diseases which happen in case of plants or in case of animals also, controlling them also microbes play a major role. They are also used as biofertilizers as well as decomposers. So what are biofertilizers and what are decomposers? So biofertilizers are living organisms or microorganisms which act as fertilizer. What do fertilizers do? In our previous lesson, we saw that fertilizers improve the soil quality. They enrich the soil with more useful nutrients. So some microorganisms can help to enrich the soil with useful nutrients, and that is why those organisms are called biofertilizers. So that is one way it can help us. They can also act as decomposers, that is, they break down dead and decaying matter into useful inorganic substances. So that means it helps the environment to get rid of the unwanted dead and decaying matter. So these are some of the ways in which microbes can be helpful to us. So here in this lesson, we are going to focus on some of them. For example, we will talk about the household products, we will talk about the industrial products, we will talk about the biofertilizers, we will talk about the decomposers. So we will talk about quite a few things. So let us start with microbes in household. Now let us look at some of the household products where microbes play an important role. So one of these is curdling of milk. Like, how is curd prepared? Curd is actually prepared from milk. So how this conversion of milk takes place into curd, the major role is played by the microbes. So microbes are responsible for milk turning into curd. So curdling of milk is one such application. Baking, so all types of baking products, whether you talk about cake or you talk about bread, so there also microbes play a very important role. Cheese formation, we all often use cheese in our food items. So this cheese is also prepared by the action of microbes. Pickles. Pickles which are stored and preserved for a long time. So you would have seen your mother or your grandmother, they prepare pickle and you store it for a very long period of time. So these pickles also are prepared with the help of microbes. So these are some of the household items where microbes play an important role. So we are going to discuss about each of these, and we will see that what role exactly is played by microbes in each of these products. So let us first talk about curd. So how is microbe playing the most important role in curd preparation? So what is curd actually? Curd contains a bacteria called lactobacillus. So this bacteria is always present in the curd. So next time whenever you eat curd or whenever you see curd, so always remember that there is a bacteria which is already present in the curd. But do you think that curd is poisonous? Not at all. In fact, curd is something which is extremely healthy for us. and we eat it. So what happens once we eat curd? Do we fall ill? No, but the bacteria is already there. So the bacteria which is present inside the curd is a friendly bacteria and it is not a harmful bacteria. That is why it doesn't harm us. So now what we have to see is how exactly this lactobacillus help in the process of conversion of milk into curd. So lactobacillus, it is a friendly bacteria as I said, and it treats and prevents diarrhea. Now forget about the fact that it is going to harm us. It is going to help us. It helps us to prevent diarrhea, and that is why you would have seen that when you are suffering from diarrhea, it is prescribed or you are advised to eat curd, because curd contains this bacteria and it will prevent or it will treat the problem of diarrhea. It also helps in food breakdown. Now once you eat the curd, this bacteria gets inside your body. So this bacteria helps in an indirect way in the process of digestion, because in the digestion process what happens, the complex food particles are broken down into simpler forms. So this bacteria also plays an important role in the process of food breakdown. It also helps in absorption of nutrients. Now once the food is digested inside our body, then the food is absorbed by different parts of the body, and that's how we get energy out of the food. So this bacteria also helps in absorption of nutrients. So you see, this bacteria, after getting inside our body, they help us in a number of ways. So now let us see how exactly the process of curdling takes place. That is conversion of milk into curd. This process is called curdling. So how this process actually happens. Now, have you ever seen your mother preparing curd, or have you ever yourself tried to prepare curd? If not, you can try it at your home. So all you need is milk and a little bit of curd, maybe a spoon of curd. That should be enough. Okay, so what you have to do is you take a bowl, put some milk in that bowl. Now that milk should not be boiling hot and it should not be freezing as well. So it should be little warm. So you take milk in that bowl and you add a small amount of curd into that milk, and then you leave it overnight. Next morning when you see that it has transformed into curd. So basically that small amount of curd is able to convert that bowl of milk into a bowl of curd. So what exactly happens? Now as I said, this spoon of curd, even though it is very small amount of curd, but that small amount also contains the bacteria lactobacillus. So what this lactobacillus does, that is what we have to concentrate here. Now even though the amount of curd which is added is very small, but this small amount of curd contains millions of lactobacillus. And what do these lactobacillus do? These lactobacillus, they convert sugars into lactic acid. And where are sugars present? Now milk. So here you have milk, and milk contains a sugar called, what is the sugar which is present in milk? The sugar which is present in milk is lactose. So milk contains lactose sugar. So the word lacto is related to milk. Therefore, the sugar present in milk is lactose. So this lactobacillus will convert lactose into lactic acid. So basically it will convert sugar into acid. So lactic acid will be formed. Now what happens when lactic acid forms? This lactic acid will coagulate and partially digest the milk protein. Now this milk, the way milk is, it is because of the presence of the various particles in it. Now there is a milk protein. Now the protein gets destroyed, the structure of the protein gets altered, and this alteration happens due to the formation of lactic acid. Now what happens? This lactic acid, due to the formation of this acid, it imparts a sour taste to the curd. So that is why there is a big difference between the taste of milk and the taste of curd. So curd is sour in taste, but when you taste milk, it is kind of sweet, right? So you can say that milk is kind of sweet. So milk is sweet due to the presence of sugar, and curd is sour due to the presence of acid. And who converts sugar into acid? Lactobacillus. That is why for curdling to take place, it is extremely important to add a small amount of curd. If you do not add that, you are basically not adding the lactobacillus bacteria. And as long as you do not add this bacteria, the sugars will not get converted into acid, and milk will also not turn into curd. So what happens is, at a suitable temperature, like normally the room temperature, these lactobacillus, they start to grow and multiply. Now as lactobacillus grow and multiply, what happens? More and more coagulation of proteins take place. As I said, the milk proteins, they start coagulating. Therefore the nutritional quality is also improved. For example, if you compare the nutritional quality of milk with that of curd, you will see that in curd the content of vitamin B12 is much more than that of milk. So all these changes happen. So who is responsible for this entire change? Lactobacillus. And lactobacillus is a bacteria. So here you can see that this bacteria is not our enemy. Instead, this bacteria is our friend. It helps in preparing a better nutritional product like curd. Even when it gets inside our body, it helps in breakdown of food. It helps in absorption of nutrients. It helps to treat diarrhea. So there are a number of ways in which this bacteria help us. So this is one example of a friendly bacteria. So as I said, the increased acidity causes the milk proteins to turn into solid masses. So that is why your milk is liquid, but when you look at the curd is not liquid. So curd is like solid masses. So this conversion happens due to the coagulation of the milk proteins. Which milk protein is present? The milk protein is casein.